Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the International Women's Artist Salon. Okay, I want you to raise your hand if you're an artist. Oh, is that everyone? Almost everyone.
You mean in the broadest sense of the word?
Yes, in any sense of the word. Yes, right on. Well, we meet once a month and celebrate women's art here. And yes, woo. And always with a variety of different genres. So I'm very excited about our lineup tonight, which we'll get to in a moment. I want to just make a couple announcements. Heidi does a lot of interesting things. Heidi Russell over here, organizer extraordinaire, leader extraordinaire, yes. So she also does Salon Radio, which is on podbean.com, and she does interviews with international women artists. And yes, American is one of the nations, included, obviously. And if you want to listen, Podbean's great. They actually have archived shows that you can listen to, the past ones as well. So interviews with women artists and women run and owned and founded arts organizations, groups, special projects. Reading Heidi's writing. Very well, I think. Yeah, I can see why you weren't a doctor, Heidi. It's pretty legible.
Legible. Oh.
Yeah, very legible. Okay, and so in this lounge, we meet every third Saturday, so become a regular. Okay, so one very cool thing that we do every month is we honor a past woman artist, and by talking about who she was, her biography. And so this month, the historical honoree is Dolores Del Rio, and I said that very much like a gringa. Dolores Del Rio, born Maria de los Dolores Asonsolo Lopez Negrete. I may have just done that very badly also, so please forgive me.
Anybody Spanish here? Speak Spanish?
Any Spanish speakers here? Oh, good. So no one knows how badly I just did that. Fabulous. Okay. Born in 1904, died in 1983. She was a Mexican actress. She was the first major female Latin American crossover star in Hollywood, with a career in American films in the 20s and 30s. She was also considered one of the most important female figures of the golden age of Mexican cinema in the 40s and 50s. Her career spanned silent film, sound film, television, stage, and radio. In 1966, she co-founded the Society for the Protection of Artistic Treasures of Mexico with the philanthropist, Felipe Garcia Peraza. The society was responsible for protecting buildings, paintings, and other works of art and culture in Mexico. That's kind of cool, Heidi. Yeah. So all those Rivera murals, yeah, Diego Rivera, those big Diego Rivera murals. Y'all know what I'm talking about, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. We have a few here. We have, raise your hand, you've seen a Diego Rivera. Good, and raise your hand, you know who Frida Kahlo is. Or
yeah.
Yes, of course. His bisexual sometime wife. Anyway, yes, cool. So she helped to preserve, Dolores Del Rio helped to preserve those. Okay. On January 8th, 1970, she, in collaboration with other renowned Mexican actresses, founded the union group Rosa Mexicana, which provided a day nursery for the children of the members of the Mexican Actors Guild. Wow. Very forward-thinking. Nice. She served as its president from the founding until 1981. After her death, the day nursery adopted the official name of, oh, this is Spanish. I'm going to read the English translation, the Dolores Del Rio Day Nursery. And today remains in existence. In 1978, the Mexican-American Institute of Cultural Relations in the White House gave Dolores a diploma and a silver plaque for her work in cinema as a cultural ambassador of Mexico in the United States. During the ceremony, she was remembered as a victim of McCarthyism.
Wow.
Right?
Of course.
All the cool people were.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Right.
If you were not cool, then McCarthy didn't care. But if you were cool, forget about it. Okay. At the age of 76, she appeared on the stage of the Palace of Fine Arts Theater the evening of October 11th, 1981. Palace of Fine Arts Theater. Where was that, Heidi? San Francisco. That sounds like San Francisco. Yeah, right? Somebody else know San Francisco?
I agree with San Francisco.
Do you know the Bay Area?
Yeah, I mean, I've been to the Palace of Fine Art in San Francisco.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
Okay. San Francisco. Okay. For a tribute to the 25th San Francisco
I was waiting for
That's
that.
how you know you knew
I
it.
should have read all the way through.
I was waiting for that.
For the 25th San Francisco International Film Festival. During the ceremony, Francis Ford Coppola, Mervyn Leroy, and George Cukor?
Yes, George Cukor. Yeah, he was
Cukor.
a famous director.
Should practice this first. Sorry, y'all. Okay, famous director. Okay, and spoke with Cukor declaring Del Rio the first lady of American cinema. This was her last known public appearance. In '82, she was awarded the George Eastman Award, given by George Eastman House for distinguished contribution to the art of film. So, our history. Let's give it up for Dolores Del Rio. Okay, and now, fast forward to today. Tonight we have 3 artists to present to you. We're going to see some visual art first with Anastasia Drake, and then we'll be hearing some wonderful readings of selected poems with Ellen Lytle, and finally we'll have some entrancing dance with Hana Kozuka. We're going to start off with Anastasia. Yes, woohoo! Yay! Woo. All right. The theme for tonight, being in the moment.
Yes.
Yes. Art really demands that of us, doesn't it? Yes, it does. Okay. So Anastasia has sculpted paintings. Sculpted paintings. That sounds cool. Using only acrylic paint that engages the viewer not only visually but also in a tactile nature, inviting the viewer to set aside their fear and preconceived barriers to understanding fine art. You get to touch it.
What?
Yes. She will tell you more. She told me that. Anastasia is an internationally recognized fine art painter, unencumbered by formal instruction. Right on. Her recent work delves into the connectedness of the real and the abstract by creating a conversation between color and texture. She has exhibited and sold internationally. In addition, she has won several artist fellowships, residencies, and awards worldwide. Her website is strokeofred.com. Please welcome Anastasia Drake.
May be the artist that came the furthest tonight. I'm actually from Kansas City, and I live in Kansas City. So I flew out here for the New York Art Expo this weekend, and I met Heidi we were debating, it was 11 or 12 years ago. She says 2006. So we met in Budapest on an artist fellowship. And I was that girl who always loved art. I grew up in a pretty volatile household, and I was too sensitive for my environment. Maybe TMI, but my dad was a heroin addict. We had to go into hiding at one point. And so I was a very sensitive child, and I would get these really bad migraine headaches. And somehow along the way, I figured out that if I drew, my headaches would go away. And I was doing art therapy on myself, essentially. And from probably the age of 5 on, I thought everyone could draw. I literally would get a magazine and I would draw front to back. And my whole life, growing up in Kansas, I didn't know that artists were a real thing. I know that sounds bizarre, but I grew up in the country in a little farm school. So we didn't even have in our class. So it was really bizarre for me. Like, I never even knew that I could be an artist. And I had heard that people go in college and they take art classes, but I thought, why? I'm smart. Like, I'm going to make a living, you know? So art was not even in my realm. And I went into the corporate world. And that's when I had kind of gotten away from art. I tried college and I was like, man, this is not much fun. And I kind of sold everything and freaked my family out and moved to Hawaii and lived on the beach. And I was drawing people on the beach for fun. And somebody came up one day and asked me to buy one of the portraits I was doing. And I was like, why? It never even occurred. Like, you can do it. Why don't you go home and do it? You know? And that was sort of my insight for the first time. I was 19 years old when I was like, wait, not everybody can draw? What? People kept asking me, and I was literally like, you know what? For a set of pencils, I'll give you this drawing sort of deal. That's when it all started. And then I came back and I got into the corporate world, and I was hardcore corporate America, and you know, I'm gonna rule the world type of deal. And then I got really, really sick when I was 25, and I was struggling. And my grandmother had given me some paints, and I didn't really know what to do with them. And one night, after being really sick, a lot of big things happening in my life, I sat down, I went in the closet and I dug these paints out and I started painting, and I never stopped. And I knew that was just part of me. I was a closet painter, so I was this closet artist. I didn't want to tell anybody, so I didn't show my work, I didn't really do anything. Fast forward a couple of years, and I'm sitting there, and I'm reaching the big 3-0, and I'm like, man, I had all these plans. I was going to travel the world, and I was going to do all this really cool stuff, and guess what? I'm still sitting in Kansas, and this sucks, and what am I doing with my life? And so I'm having my quarter life crisis, basically. And I started doing some research online, and I found this artist fellowship. And I will be honest, I never thought for a second that I would win, because, you know, I had never had any shows, I'd never really done anything, but I thought, I'm in the exact same boat if I don't get it. So why not apply? And I applied, and lo and behold, I won. So I went to Budapest, and that's where I met Heidi for the first time. And we connected and became friends. And then I ended up spending a year, I was like, well, this is really cool. They want to pay me to do art? So I applied and I won, and I went to Italy, and then I went to Germany, and I was like, well, can I call myself an artist yet? You know, like I didn't really know. So I moved back, and lo and behold, I got pregnant on birth control, and it was a really, really big shock for me. And I didn't find out until I was about 5 months pregnant. And that's when I went, oh crap, what am I going to do? Well, it turns out no one will hire you when you're 5 months pregnant. So I thought, now it's time to make an art living. And I've been a full-time artist ever since. My son is 9. And it was like, failure wasn't an option at that point, because he didn't eat if I didn't make money. So I learned to hustle. But shortly after I moved back from Italy, I moved to Kansas City, and it was supposed to be a wayward spot. I wasn't planning on staying there, of course. And somehow the Arthritis Foundation got a hold of my name, and I still to this day don't know how. And they called and they said, hey, we got this really cool project, and we were wondering if you could work on it with us. And they said it's a program called Art for Arthritis, and there's these children that have arthritis. I had no idea children had arthritis. And they said, you just create a piece of artwork with these kids, and then we'll auction it off. And I thought, well, that's kind of cool. Like, I'm going to finger paint with a kid. Awesome. And then when I showed up, the director pulled me aside, and they said, well, okay, so we gave you our toughest case. And I'm like, well, what are you talking about? What? I'm not going to finger paint with a child? It was a 12-year-old girl who was struggling with a really rare form of arthritis called Behçet's. She was going completely blind. And I thought, well, I'm a painter. What am I supposed to do with a blind girl? And I kind of, after sitting down and talking to her a couple times, I realized we had a real connection. She was struggling. And art was something that I connected to when I was struggling. And so after about 3 times meeting with her, I said, listen, this is your voice. What do you want to say? What do you want people, you're going to have a stage and people are going to look at your artwork. What do you want this to say? And she said, I said, if you were to say on canvas what arthritis means to you, what does it mean? And she said, I would draw a roller coaster. So my life sucks. I'm 12 years old and going blind. They shot her full of steroids to keep the little vision she had so that she could learn to walk with a stick and read Braille. And she had gained about 150 pounds. Ooh. So, like, 12 isn't hard enough when you're a female, or in general, 12 is hard. But she also was a minority, and she was going blind, and she was about 250 pounds. Life was brutal. And so I drew the roller coaster, and she looked at me and she kind of smirked and she said, now can we draw the kids and making fun of me flying off the page? And I said, yes. And so she started to open up through that. And one of the things she said was, I'm never going to be able to be an artist. And I said, well, why not? And she said, because I'm blind. I'm going blind. And I said, it doesn't matter. I said, you can do anything you want. You just have to learn to do it your way. So I went and I got Van Gogh and Monet. And I put it up sort of like this for her, and I blew it up great big. And I said, guess what? They all had vision problems. And she said, their art makes me happy. I want to do that. I want to make people happy. And so, bless her heart, nose touching canvas, she drew out a landscape. But she couldn't see it to paint it. So I was like, oh, what can I do? What can I do? And I ended up taking a hot glue gun, and I traced all her lines. And then she felt it, and I said, red's here, yellow's here. And so she painted this picture, and not bad for a blind girl. And we put it up, and we got to tell her story. We called it The World Through Naisha's Eyes. So at the event, we actually asked people to come up and touch the artwork. So they were now in her world. She wasn't in their world anymore. And what happened that night was really interesting. I saw two things happen. One, it transformed a little girl. She cried. It sold for $800 to a doctor who took it on a world tour to explain art therapy. And she said, I never knew I could make anything so pretty. And she ended up becoming an ambassador in her school for handicapped kids. She ended up doing all these great things. But what was really interesting was the audience. We were getting hugged all night because people were allowed to connect with the artwork. They've never been able to do that. There's all these rules, and it's pretentious, and we can't touch it, and we can't, and they couldn't connect. And it was really cool. It was almost like watching, it was a formal affair, and it was watching all these people in formal attire walk up and become little kids again. And they're giggling, and they're touching the artwork, and I was like, there's something to this. This is really cool. So then my artwork started to transform. I started to have shows where I invited people to touch the artwork. I created texture in my own paintings, and people really got into it. I mean, this girl was like full on, really enjoying this process, and I loved it, and I got connected. People were connecting to it. And then it became even a bigger deal. It wasn't about blind anymore. I started doing press releases because when I would do shows, children with autism aren't allowed to go to art shows because they want to touch. You're not allowed to touch. They've never been able to experience an art show. So suddenly we were allowing them to do that, and people were flocking. They were like, oh my God, our kid gets to experience art for the first time. And I just loved what that was doing for the people that I was working with. So my stuff started getting thicker. This was something I did for a children's hospital. It's all paint. It's all acrylic paint, heavy body acrylic paint. I learned very quickly. I had to get a studio outside my home. My son was about 3 when I did a painting like this, and he bounced a ball right into the middle of it. There's no fixing it, I'll tell you. So it's been a progress. And then I started getting a little more structural with my art. So this is a piece I did at an art fair where many people brought their autistic children or blind children, and it was really cool because the kids would fill the petals and the parents would describe what they were feeling. And then this is a flower petal, and for me as an artist, that's it. Like, just watching people connect with the art was huge for me. Here's a couple of other pieces. I'm not going to show you a ton. This is one of my more recent pieces, and again, people touching it. And if you want to see more of my work, you can go to my website, strokeofred.com. I just wanted to show you a couple. This is one I've done very recently, and it's probably, I would say, 3 inches thick, all acrylic paint. So, again, I do a lot of shows where people can come and connect with the artwork. Art changed my life, and it's really important for me to help people connect to it, to take that fear away from it. People are so afraid of artwork, and I have people all the time who are like, you're an artist? And I either get the, oh, you're starving, or I get the, I don't know what to talk to you about, I don't know what to do. And I'm like, no, 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 come touch it. And they're like, what? And then I get hugged all night long. So really, sort of the theme for tonight was being in the moment, and that's what this is for me. It touches my heart so much when I watch people walk up and touch my artwork and describe and really just explaining to me how they feel. And lots of people said, your art's happy. It makes me happy. And that kind of just describes my work overall. I almost thought about trying to buy, I own another website called happycowpaintings.com, because the same thing, they're all cows, because I'm from Kansas, right? But they're all happy, and everyone goes, oh, people buy them like crazy. And so many times I've said, well, why do you buy a big old cow for your living room? You're not even country. And they're like, it makes me happy. And that's my goal as an artist, is just to make people happy, to help people connect. Art saved my life. And so if I can give that to somebody else, that's the biggest step for me. So are we at Q&A after, or? Yeah. Okay, so I guess that's it. Thanks, guys.
Wow, gorgeous work, and I think I'm gonna have to go to Kansas just so I can feel this art. Because yeah, I'm looking at the paintings here, they're beautiful, and none of us would dare touch them, right? So that's so thrilling what you do.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, as we continue, I just want to give a shout out to our bartender, Stephen. Woo! So please have your drinks and tip him very well, okay? All right, now we're going to switch to literature. We're going to have some selected poems from Ellen Lytle. Currently, much of Ellen's time is spent caring for her handicapped cardigan Welsh corgi. Good. Yes, and writing as much as possible in between prepping meals, cleaning, grocery shopping, and meeting with friends. There may be a new, as yet untitled book of poetry from NYQ Press coming out, and she hopes to soon start a manuscript of short fiction. Lytle has 3 books of poems and 2 short fiction books published, and she teaches creative writing at the New Dorp Library on Staten Island. Ellen was a journalist and won 2 prizes for her poetry in 1989 and 2006. She spent half her life writing and living in Vermont. Wow, but you chose New York. You can find her book, Homefront, New and Selected Poems, on Amazon. Please welcome Ellen Lytle.
Oh, Jennifer, you have the same name as my sister-in-law, and if I closed my eyes, you have the same voice. So here we go, Missouri, Kansas City, you know. I think I told you you're from Kansas City, from Missouri. Okay, I don't know. You're hard actor. I brought some poems, and also the Del Rio, the Dolores Del Rio thing got me thinking about Mexico, which is one of my favorite countries in the world. Viva Mexico. I'm going to start out with a poem that's very personal. And I'm from New York, but I've lived in Vermont since 1971, and off and on, you know. Summers, winters, but not, you know, all the time. And so most of my work, though, has Vermont in it. But when I was about 20 years old or younger, I had kids. I had 2 children before I was 18. So, and I lived in Switzerland when I was about 20. So this is a poem that I wrote in Vermont about when I was 20 in Switzerland. In Europe, I'm higher than you. Who says the apple tree outside the bathroom window hasn't got a glass slipper? In Europe, I'm higher than you. I can look down from the 2nd story, see you relaxing in a shady park with a dog, a yellow toy clutched in his paw. A different year, and Spain smells from tobacco. Maja perfume, hammock trees, hammock streets under dark trees. We sleep near her border, in my Sunbeam Alpine, 2 toddlers in the jump seat, our dog then, a cocker gypsy, stays in Switzerland with Jacques and Madame Cerveza. In middle-class, sweaty Barcelona, I'm 20 and pregnant for the 3rd time, checking into a hotel with a dumbwaiter hoisting wheat up and down from our room. Trapped with an addict husband, crowded by Bronx-like buildings, I beg help from something strange, perversely an injection from him. I'm pregnant, right? In those days, there was an injection you could get, and if you bled, that means you lost the pregnancy. Stupidly, but you know, it meant it brought on your period, I guess. So I beg help from something strange, perversely an injection from him. This will make you bleed or not, he quips. But fall is coming. Bread and jam on the table, not just green trees stalking a white sky, but summer's bulge before the explosion. We can all live better through electricity. Just seeing that woman with a guarded smile on the one train, a gauzy shirt pulled over her camisole, it's fall. Entering inch by inch, chewing up my pink Crocs, devouring every cherry and peach, and without a streak of summer's ranginess. Molds, cocoons, dark splotches under trees speckled with sunlight, protecting the world in their thickets, as if nothing has to ripen again, as if autumn precision tidies up, as if nothing's casual anymore. And if summer opened like a groundswell, sweating into a mouth of tiny hearts, then now it parts lips like a river running its banks. And haughty fall ties up Vermont mornings without hoots from the owl or croaks from a frog pond hemmed in monotonous fields and broken only by a shock of dancing daylilies, yellow as September. The craziness begins when Mom stops buying Nabisco social teas. Early summers all look the same in second-rate Auburndale, which is northern Queens. But not this summer Carmen Kelly, wearing a lacy dress and veiled hat, walks through their tiny trellised garden on her way to Our Lady of the Most Blessed Sacrament. She lost her baby, neighbors said, while the loganberry trees, dripping sweetness like blood, covered the potholed streets where we live in 2-family houses. Scenting the afternoon that smacks against us, honeysuckle mixes with adults, nets of crickets, and bees that buzz the berries we stuff in our mouths. Thick heat swipes the fallen fruit, grinding into a mat of purple pulp and skin. And we play My Name is Alice with Spalding high bouncers. And Carmen Kelly waits for another baby. Women in button coats wearing cheap shoes. 1. Compare the feeling of Trump's win with my sister's ignorance and plastic ivy trellising walls of a Chelsea brownstone. Though an early morning black, as usual, I wonder how long my body will work before kidneys, lungs, or pancreas stall out, sputtering like Dad's old Chevy while a well spurts liquid like ink and changes time into something larger than a morning. When herons and magpie chorus life's detritus and those pitiful patters of shabby childhood open into ribbon darkness before the light overcomes a gloom that rolls over someone else. So Goody and I walk the neighborhood, the chorus simmers down, the hovering night evaporates, and in morning light I wear stupid socks that match scrupulously my striped haircut. And the prompt November sky whips up a batter of clouds while I stretch to find $5 for flowers, 'cause Mike and I both love the name Bill, too. My first boyfriend was Bill. He was brown plastic and wore a business suit. He lived in my dollhouse, sat on the tiny toilet, and when life was bleakest, we'd sit together, shielded from the fleshy family, in an upstairs corner, sipping Sanka like Hopper's Nighthawks at the counter, safely tucked under a roof of mammoth buildings. The hope Sunday arrives clean as Tuesday, opening onto a broad, awake world, hearing its own hum, is across a highway that roars above neglected streets. And somewhere a pitch-black night looms like a drowned cloud with cottony plugs dipped into darkness, and the likes of older women in buttoned coats wearing cheap shoes. I think I'll, let's hear one more maybe. March. Today marches a boost, advancing from gulps of icy dampness into a spirit that dusts a rose, free as a spring balloon. There's honesty to these clouds that lately won't sit still, drifting above the brick buildings, why it's almost uncold, almost warm, almost kissable. Maybe March is a dawdle in space, while slender gaps alongside the big hub of what is, open to what can be. An ordinary winter month, it knocks me out with its clarity, an air of truth that shouts out from a wide open mouth, and it's blunt enough for smoke to whistle through wind and fly above Delphic clouds bearing pink. Thank you.
Beautiful work, Ellen. Thank you so much. Let's have another round of applause. Okay, we're going to be passing the hat at the end, and that's the hat, that silver. Yes, it's the top hat, right? This will help to support the expenses related to Salon Radio, as well as the expenses related to keeping this event going. So please give generously. All right, so now we will have our last artist of the evening, Hana Kozuka. And she is doing something I totally admire, so brave. She's going to improvise right in front of you. This will be a fully improvised performance representing the flow of subconsciousness. She is a dancer, and she's originally from my home state, Minnesota. Yeah, you know. Oh, see, now my mom just wants to come and visit.
no.
Yeah, yeah. So, okay. All right then. So, so she's from Duluth, and she moved to New York City right out of high school to train at the Joffrey Ballet School Jazz and Contemporary Trainee Program. Go, girl. Just launch yourself. For 2.5 years on a full merit scholarship. Woohoo! She has since danced for MTV, Six Flags, Macy's, YouTube, and NBC, to name a few. She's also performed at venues such as Ailey Citigroup Theater, LaGuardia Performing Arts Center, and Symphony Space. As a choreographer, her work has been presented in New York City several times, as well as in Boston. She is grateful that she's able to express her emotions through movement and always hopes to convey universal truths through her work. Next up for her, she has a performance on April 28th at Jennifer Muller The Works, which is 131 West 24th Street. You can follow her on Instagram and Facebook at Hana Kozuka. Please welcome Hana Kozuka. Woo.
That's not it.
There we go.
Wow, amazing work. Let's give her another round of applause. And way to stay in the moment. Okay, who else noticed the leg of the chair was off the stage? Were you totally worried? I was worried for a moment. I thought, okay, I'm the MC. I don't want to interrupt. And then there was a moment where maybe this is what you thought. We can trust her. She's not going to fall. Nothing bad's going to happen. And you handled the moment so well. Wasn't that amazing?
Yeah.
Yeah, because that wasn't planned. You didn't plan to have the chair fall off the stage. Yeah. Really well done.
Also,
Okay.
there was lyrics to that song and a poem, but it didn't happen.
Okay. Well, what we saw was gorgeous.
Be
All right.
in the moment. Be
Yes,
in the
be in the moment. All right, well, I'd like to invite all the artists up at this point, and we're going to pass the hat. Let's have the artists come up and, let's just have a conversation. Just any questions you have about the art or about these artists' practice. Do they do it every day? How do they stay in shape? And the varieties of ways we have to stay in shape as artists. So come on up on the stage, ladies. Yes. So, yes, in the light. Let's see your beautiful, beautiful faces. All right, so who has a question or a thought for the artist? Yeah.
Sorry, it's Anastasia?
Yeah.
Okay. You only work with acrylic paint?
Yes.
I was wondering, have you ever thought about working with a different material? Like, why acrylic paint?
I have,
Can you repeat the question?
yes, she asked why I don't work with other materials, why I work with acrylic paint. I have worked with oils before, but never in a texture form. What I like about acrylics is it's so versatile. You can really work with it, manipulate it, and I'm still learning about it. I had thought about working, you know, I've seen some artists use plaster and molding paste and some things like that. And I was working, a woman bought a rather large painting of mine, and she was an avid art collector. She owned a really expensive piece from another artist. And she was telling me she was really upset because she had recently bumped against it on the wall and a chunk fell off. And I was like, I never, ever want somebody to experience that with my own work. So I've stuck with acrylics just because I know what it'll do and I feel confident with it. Where adding some of those other mediums into it, which I'm not completely opposed, I'm not a snob, but with my own work, I'm just a little bit nervous about what it will do in the long term. I want repeat customers and not them telling some other artist, yeah, I bought this piece and, you know, it fell off the canvas, so that's fine.
Okay.
All right, who else has a question for the artist? Ellen, actually, I'm curious. So you said you had 2 kids before you were 18. Wow. And so in total, how many kids do you have?
3.
You do have 3. So I'm really curious about your art practice when you started writing and how that happened and how it evolved.
Well, I started writing very young, you know. As a child, it was a good escape. And then I think I was telling Heidi, or maybe it was somebody, Maureen, that there was a girl in my class in 5th grade, and she used to do these little frogs, stories about frogs that lived in saltine boxes. So I sort of copied her because I loved frogs. And then I started doing, I remember when I lived in Switzerland then, I wrote a short story, and I think that was one of my first, yeah. And just like fitting it in.
Yeah.
That's why poetry is good. When you've got a lot of other things going on in your life, it's not a big project. I
Right.
did work on a novel. Well, it's not finished yet. It's got about 29 chapters, but it's still under. And that a novel is going to take, you know, it's
Sustained concentration.
absolutely.
And with
All the
kids,
time.
that's the one
Yeah.
thing you don't have, right?
Now I have grandkids.
And now you have grandkids.
And a cat and a dog.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, cool. Thank you.
I don't think it's
No, when you hold it down here. Definitely not.
Oh,
You have to
no.
do
I'm
that.
into it. Okay.
Yeah, they don't, this mic isn't very sensitive.
Okay.
So, yeah. Okay, next question. Yeah.
Sorry, I'm that person. Hannah. So, yeah, you did do an improvisational piece, which
Yes.
I think we all appreciate. And I was wondering, because the title of your piece is 3 a.m., and I wondered when you held the mirror and when you were waving at it and how you were like looking at us through the mirror, like what was your thought process in that moment for this environment when you were doing that, connecting to the title?
Okay. Ooh, you do have to hold it close. So the song originally has a poem overlaid on top of the instrumental that you just heard.
Mm-hmm.
In the poem, the guy is referring to him very late night text conversation that he has with this girl, what we would call booty call.
Mm-hmm.
So immediately I thought, mirror. I was reflecting the guy, but the girl within myself. And you guys would see that. However, the poem did not happen. So then I turned it into, I think, I feel like very late at night, I feel like I'm a bunch of different people looking back at the day and almost looking back and seeing who you were that day or who you were the past year. Like, oh, hi, you were stupid that day. You were brilliant that day. and just kind of acknowledging them by thinking back. That was my
Yes. Okay, next question, yes.
Yeah, first I'd like to say that you handle mishaps very well.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah, which is very hard to do. The other thing I'd like each of you, if you could comment on your influences, who other artists or whoever were influences on your work.
Okay, and just to repeat the question, she'd like you to comment on your influences, each of you.
This one's rough for me. Heidi had actually asked me if I had any female influences growing up, and as I kind of said before, I grew up in Kansas and there were a lot of artists around. New York was sort of this far-fetched. I didn't even grow up with cable, okay, so I didn't even see like an MTV video till I was in college. So I didn't really understand art. However, one of my earliest favorite memories was we were very, very poor, and I remember sitting down with my mom and coloring, and she could do bubble letters, and that sounds really bizarre, but I thought she was magic. I thought, man, she is so talented. And then I found out there's sort of this secret DNA thing in my family where everybody's an artist, but nobody's ever done anything with it. And it's been really amazing to sort of harness that and go, you know what? I'm gonna do something with it. So I don't know. Sadly, I can't. My mother was a huge influence to me in that sense of thinking. I mean, I probably had to have been 4 or 5 from that memory, and just thinking she's magic and she can do these really cool things. So that would be mine.
Yeah, I was asked that same question, and definitely my mother. She was an incredible editor. And she made up stories when she washed our hair in the bathtub. I have a sister 1.5 years younger, so we were treated like twins. We couldn't be more different. But yes, my mother made up these great little stories all the time. Very something you'd never think, because she was kind of very strict parent, very kind of stern, but something happened to her when she'd make up stories. And also, Diane Rakowski was a big influence, the poet Diane Rakowski. She was a musician. She's a pianist, or was, and painting. I used to paint more, and I loved painting, and it's part of poetry, so, okay.
I mean, I don't want to keep you guys here all night. But I'll give you a couple. In the dance world, just for them, I'm saying this: Crystal Pite. Yes. Alexander Ekman, because he works with a lot of props and huge theatrical aspects, as well as Peter Bausch. Overall, I would say actually Frida Kahlo, which is very relevant to tonight. One, because she was a bisexual woman, and I currently identify as that myself. 2, because she was unapologetic in who she was. Her, like, everything that she did, she was very strong, and it was hard to be like that back then, of course. And even today, I kind of wanted to represent the masculinity and the femininity within myself by the white shirt and then the black and then the see-through in the back as well. So that was kind of tied in. As far as like live performance art, not sure if I'm saying her name right, Mariana Obramovic? Yeah, the one, yeah. She does a lot of stuff at the Met. She was the woman who did this viral video back a couple years ago where she and a former lover met for the first time in, I think, 20 years, face to face, in that interaction. I'm sure right, that one. And just like everything that she's done live art where she sits or stands in a room, there's a shotgun, there's a feather, all these knives, everything, and everyone who comes in can do whatever they want to her. So people will come up, put the shotgun to her face, and pretend like they would pull the trigger. But you know, and all kinds of things that happened during that. And just her bravery and ability to just like use herself fully for the art without thinking about the selfish things of mortality. So that's who I would say.
Nice. Yeah. All right, Heidi, do we
Maybe a
have time?
picture of everybody up the stage, so if anybody wants a photo op. I just want to say thank you to Jennifer Joy for hosting tonight, and round of applause to Jennifer. And please stay, mix and mingle. Thank you to Dixie Place for their fabulous support, and Stephen. And please get to know each other, exchange cards, and see you next month on the third Saturday.
Thank you.